Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Stock Legends Radio Show. Please welcome today's host, myself, Justin Cogswell. Also today, we're excited to have a guest that's been on the show many times in the past. A lot of our listeners are familiar with him and his company. Rob, thanks for agreeing to come back on the show again. Your stock continues to perform and your company continues to generate a significant amount of news. Rob is the president of ITUS Corporation, trading on the NASDAQ under ticker symbol ITUS. Rob, welcome back to the radio show.
Thanks, Justin. Happy New Year to you, and thank you for having me back.
Oh, of course. Happy New Year. Hopefully 2017 will be as prosperous as 2016. Now, Rob, you've had a significant amount of news generated for ITUS Corporation recently. On December 7th, you put out a release talking about some preliminary results as far as your patient biomarker study. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that and tell us exactly what that news meant for our listeners today?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So you're correct. On December 17th, we put out preliminary results. And, there's two main bits of news within that are very, very important. Number one, we have now validated our CCheck cancer technology with 14 different types of cancer, including breast cancer, lung cancer, and colon cancer, which are the top three in terms of incidences worldwide. And then many different cancers, in addition to that. And what's important about that is that it's very unique to have a set of biomarkers that work across multiple types of cancer. Generally, people or scientists are looking for biomarkers for lung cancer or biomarkers for breast cancer. And the particular biomarkers that we're looking at, which are the body's immune response to a malignancy, so far we have validated with 14 different cancer types, and frankly, we think that it's going to work with all types of cancer. So that's the first bit of news in that release that's very, very unique. The second bit of news that I'd like to focus on today are the results that we published. In the diagnostic world, diagnostic tests are judged by what are called sensitivity and specificity. What sensitivity means is how good is your test at detecting what it's supposed to detect. So in other words, if you've got a breast cancer diagnostic, are you detecting 50% of the breast cancers, 60% of the breast cancers? That's what sensitivity is. How good is it at determining or detecting the condition that it's supposed to detect? The other measure that's used for diagnostic tests are sensitivity. And what sensitivity talks about is how good is your test at distinguishing the blood of healthy patients from the blood of cancer patients. And so that leads to what we talk about in the industry as false positives. A false positive is when a asymptomatic person that does not have a disease takes a test, and the test indicates that they have a disease when they really don't have a disease. And so for diagnostic tests, you want to have high sensitivity, meaning you want it to detect the type of condition that you're looking for, and you want it to have high specificity, meaning low false positives. So just to set the stage, they are basically the two measures that are used for all diagnostic tests. In our particular case, using our most recent protocol, we announced sensitivity of 92% and specificity of 92%. And so those are very, very high sensitivity and specificity numbers, especially compared to what's out there in the marketplace now. So just to put it in perspective for you, lung cancer, which is currently screened using a low dose, what's called a low dose CT, which is a type of X-ray, has very, very high 96% false positives. And so although the sensitivity of a lung cancer screening is okay at 93%, the specificity is 73%. So that results in a very, very high amount of false positives. If you look at prostate PSA test that's used to screen prostate cancer. There, you've got sensitivity of 21%, meaning that it misses 79% of the prostate cancers. The mammography, the mammogram, which is really held up as the gold standard for diagnostics today, has a sensitivity of 68% and a specificity of 75%. So with the mammogram being at 68 and 75 and our preliminary results being at 92 and 92, you can see that we are well above the existing diagnostic tests that are out there, including the mammogram, at least with our preliminary results.
That's astronomical. If you think about if you have that many people that have cancer on the testicular side, and it was a testicular side that you said, correct?
I didn't.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. Was it colorectal? I'm sorry, I missed that part. But one of them you said had something like 72% are actually missed.
Yeah, I was talking about prostate.
Prostate, yes, sorry, prostate.
That's okay.
So you have 7 out of 10 people that go in to get this particular screening that may have cancer when they leave. That may be an opportunity to save those lives.
That's right. And most tests are strong, or I wouldn't say strong, but they're acceptable in one area, either sensitivity or specificity, but they're very low in the other. And so, having a test that detects a large percentage of the cancers that it's supposed to detect, but has an enormous amount of false positives is not a good result, because you end up in that instance having asymptomatic people that don't have a disease, but that come up as having a disease with a test, and they have follow-on treatments that are both very expensive and in many instances painful, and in some instances, particularly with lung cancer, are dangerous. So a test that has a high sensitivity and a low specificity, you've got a problem with false positives. If it's the other way around, and the test has a low sensitivity but a high specificity, that's the scenario that you just indicated. That's an instance where you miss a large percentage of the cancers that you're supposed to detect. Your false positives are reasonable, but you miss a lot of the cancers. And what good is a diagnostic test that is developed to detect a particular type of disease if it misses much of the disease? So with the existing technologies, they're usually okay in one area and really weak in the other area. And with us, at least so far, we have very, very impressive both sensitivity and specificity.
It's unbelievable the results that we're getting. Now, you've been putting together an all-star team. You have for a long time here. You've broken stride really significantly over the last year. It's been an incredible 2016. We're really looking 2017. Now, Rob, on December 7th, you recently announced that MD Anderson was joining the study. We've watched you really break stride over the last 12 months. 2016 was an amazing year for the company. You've put together a phenomenal team and really taken lead here as far as the studies and the quality of people participating in your overall mission. How does the relationship with MD Anderson benefit the company, and what significance will it bring?
Sure. Thanks, Justin. MD Anderson, I would say that there's 3 significant points. Number one, MD Anderson Cancer Center is one of the most well-respected names in the country, frankly, in the world, when it comes to cancer and particularly diagnostics. So having them on board certainly helps in that they are world-renowned in terms of cancer and diagnostics. So that's number one. Number two, we're currently conducting patient trials, and to do that, we need patient samples. And part of the problem with cancer and anything related to cancer is that there's so much regulation out there that it's very hard to get either tissue samples if you're using them, in our case, blood samples. You would think that it would be fairly easy to get a tube of blood from a patient at a hospital or a cancer center, but there's an awful lot of red tape that's involved. And so bringing MD Anderson on board will double the amount of patient samples that we are able to process. And so I think we've talked about before, we're currently conducting our preliminary trials in the hopes of processing enough samples to when we're ready to begin our discussions with the FDA. And MD Anderson will be a big help to us in that regard, in that they will provide a significant amount of patient samples, which will allow us to begin those discussions with the FDA much sooner. The third point I want to bring out with respect to MD Anderson is that when we bring a new cancer center on board, we go to the cancer center and we sit down with the doctors and we explain to them what we're trying to do with our test with CCheck. And when a new cancer center comes on board, the reason why they come on board is because they see the tremendous potential that our test will have in their daily practices. I mean, they're the people that are out there on the front lines that are trying to diagnose cancer. And when we talk to them about our test, you could really see their eyes light up. And they're like, wow, that would be amazing if we could have a very simple blood test that could either be used as a screening test or even as a confirmatory diagnostic. Their eyes light up and they get very, very excited. And so centers like MD Anderson get pitched all the time to join various studies, but them coming on board with our study shows that they see the potential in our test and the utility and the benefits that it can have in their everyday practice. And these are the doctors that are on the front line, so they really do know what's going on.
This is a substantial clinic. I mean, they were founded in 1941 and considered to be one of the original 3 comprehensive cancer centers in the United States. So this is a significant relationship.
That's right. Their headquarters is in Houston, and we're dealing with a hospital of theirs, which is located in southern New Jersey, outside of Philadelphia, where we're currently conducting our trial with the Wistar Institute. And so, like I said, there's really no better name in the world of cancer than MD Anderson, and we're thrilled to have them on board.
In a rather short period of time, in the last 12 months, we've seen a significant advancement forward in the company and in the stock price. Just in the last year alone, the stock price has practically doubled from its starting position. What do you attribute all of this success to? Do you think that investors are finally just catching wind of the future opportunity of the company? Or what do you think has fueled such a large advancement in attention in such a short period of time?
Frankly, when it comes to stock price, I mean, you pretty much have to keep your head down and continue to execute, and hopefully the stock price, will take care of itself. And in our case, it's certainly starting to move in the right direction. What I attribute our success to, it's a good question. I would say probably 2 things. Number one, the science. And Dr. Amit Kumar, our chairman, is really a first-rate scientist. And so he's the one who came up with the concept of CCheck. When we approached the Wistar Institute about what we're trying to do, they were very excited to come on board. And so the caliber of our scientists has enabled us to make a tremendous amount of progress in a relatively short amount of time. The second factor, I think, is frankly, our management team. I mean, we've worked together in the past. We've been through the trenches with each other. And so we don't have to waste a lot of time with incidental things that take up your focus and that take you off center. We've worked together before at other companies. We know each other very well. And so we're able to operate much more efficiently than management that's just getting to know each other for the first time. And I think that has been also a factor in our success. The third thing I want to mention, we're doing something very, very interesting with our results with respect to a neural network. What we're doing is when we get the results of our blood study, basically the human mind is able to look at things in, the best analogy I could give is, let's say, in 2 dimensions. And so what we are doing is we're taking the patient results out, and we're having them read and processed by a neural network, which is a computer system that is able to see things in multiple dimensions and see associations that the human mind and the human eye aren't able to see. So whereas the human mind might work in 2D or 3D, the neural network is able to work in, let's say, 7D. And so it's able to look at spacing between cells. It's able to look at shape. It's able to look at size. It's able to look at multiple factors at the same time. And by using this neural network, we're able to take a lot of the human error side out of reading the results, because oftentimes in diagnostics, particularly if you're looking at images or you're looking at types of cells, you could have 5 or 6 doctors in the room, and they'll give you 5 or 6 different answers at what they're looking at. And so we've sought to take the human error out of our results by training a neural network to do the study and do the analysis using tools that are beyond almost human, I don't want to say comprehension, but certainly what a human being wouldn't be able to do all at once. And we're developing this neural network in-house. One of our engineers, John Roop, is heading up that effort. And it's really an exciting part of our diagnostic because it's really cutting edge. And it's part of what we think is giving us the phenomenal results that we've seen so far.
That makes a lot of sense. Whenever you're able to automate and look for variables that pop out to a system rather than a human diagnosis, you're really taking a lot of the error or white noise out of the equation. That makes a lot of sense.
That's right. And the more samples you use to train the neural network, the better the training set, the better the results that you'll get. And so as good as our results are now, we're hopeful anyway that we'll continue to have success and maybe even better results going forward.
What should we expect from the company moving forward? We're coming into a new year now. It's 2017. A lot of eyes are on the company. What do you expect over the next year? What does 2017 look like for ITUS Corporation?
Well, number one, we're going to continue to bring medical practices and hospitals on board to feed our need for patient samples. So we're in discussions with additional medical practices and hospitals. So the faster we get samples, the faster we can accumulate the data that's necessary to begin our conversations with the FDA. And so you'll see us continue to bring, as I said, hospitals and cancer practices on board, number one. Number two, you'll see us continue to try to validate our technology with different types of cancer. We've validated with 14 types to date, but there's many other cancer types out there. And so you'll see us try to continue to expand our technology into other areas of cancer. And then finally, we hope to accumulate enough samples in 2017 to begin our discussions with the FDA. We anticipate that the FDA is a 2 to 3 year process from when you start to begin the discussions. But we expect to be finalizing our protocols and expect to be accumulating enough patient samples where we can begin that dialogue before the end of 2017.
That would be a huge step. Now, is there any way to, maybe not particularly in your instance, but just in general, is there ever a way to kind of fast track an FDA approval?
There's all kinds of processes through the FDA. Keep in mind that ours is a simple blood test. We're just taking a tube of blood, so it's not a therapeutic. We're not sticking a device into a human being. So we will likely take the track of what's called a 510K, which is a sort of abbreviated track through the FDA. But I also, need to be forthright. I mean, it's still a government entity, and, it's always a challenge to get things through the FDA. But we think that we will be accepted into one of the summary processes and summary procedures, and it won't take nearly the amount of time or nearly the amount of money that it takes to get a therapeutic through FDA approval.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because the person actually isn't really taking a drug or potentially receiving direct bodily injury from a drug that is not deemed safe. So the risk to the actual person should be minimal by their standards.
Yeah, the risk is, look, you'll either miss a cancer or you'll misdiagnose a cancer. And, I wouldn't say that there's no risk, but that's certainly different than putting a medical device, implanting it into somebody that can actually do them harm. Our test itself cannot do them harm, and based on the numbers that we're seeing, should frankly have a lot of benefit, especially compared to what's already out there.
Now, Rob, for the listeners listening today, maybe we have some new listeners or old investors. Would you like to say anything to the investors or maybe give them some motivation over the next year before we go here?
We're in a very exciting area that the space is commonly referred to as the liquid biopsy space. And bodily fluids are being studied, whether it's urine or blood or breath or hair. Everybody's looking for biomarkers, which are indicators of something else. A biomarker is a term that's used when you see evidence of something. And our particular set of biomarkers is working very, very well right now. And cancer is a worldwide epidemic. And all the experts that I talk to really talk about diagnostics and immunotherapies as being the two hallmarks that are going to be used in the fight against cancer for the next 50 years. And although we don't have an immunotherapy per se, we are using and tracking the body's immune response to cancer. And that's what our diagnostic is based on. When there's a malignancy inside the body, certain immune cells travel to the site of the cancer, and oftentimes certain classifications of these cells drop off into the peripheral blood. And so what our technology does is it looks for these cells in the blood. And so the results from the past 60 years have shown us that the earlier that cancer is detected, the higher the survival rate. So if you are able to diagnose cancer when it's stage 1 or stage 2, you have a 90 to 100% survival rate. If you find the cancer at stage 3 or stage 4, when it's more advanced and what's called metastasized, you have between a 20 and a 30%. So to the investors out there and the cancer patients out there, I'd like to say that there are better technologies on the way that are going to make a significant difference in the fight against cancer. And we think that ITUS Corporation is going to be leading that charge, certainly in 2017.
Is there a way to trademark or patent this particular process since it is so unique?
Sure. We have filed one patent application and are in the process of working that through the patent office. And we are about to file, or have filed, I believe, in the last couple of days, our second application. And so we are filing for patent protection, and hopefully we'll get a good result. I've been working with the patent office. We're certainly optimistic at this point based upon the initial responses that we've gotten from the patent office.
That's very exciting. That's extremely exciting. Well, Rob, it's been our pleasure having you back on the radio show. As always, we've been watching your stock. Now, for the listeners listening today, the company is trading on the NASDAQ exchange under ticker symbol ITUS. There's also a good amount of information on the internet for you to take a look at. There's previous interviews, since we kind of covered topics today a little bit more in depth than maybe a new listener is familiar with. There are lots of other recordings. Rob has always come on the radio show and kept us up to date, which I think is a great way to stay in touch with your investors, which is so important nowadays. So many companies kind of drift away from their investor base and work on their own. It's really tough to get a grasp on everything that's going on, especially when it's so intricate as this process is to be able to get an idea from a 1 or 2 paragraph press release. The website that you can go and see for ITUS Corporation is www.ituscorp.com. That's ITUS corp.com. There's a lot of additional information. You can also, call the company. They always keep in touch with their investors. Rob, anything else that you want to close today's discussion with?
No, as a matter of fact, though, I do want to mention that we are launching a new website, and that should be launched within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So, we are very in tune with our shareholder base and always looking to get them the best information and quickly and regularly. And so stay tuned, and we'll put an announcement out once we launch our new website, and we think it'll be even better for investors to follow what's going on with the company.
As always, thank you very much.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks for